28th summit. We'll be bringing you details about the Nairobi declaration, what exactly was agreed upon, but allow us to shift focus to the sidelines of that particular event, where our reporters had a chance to converse with various government representatives on various issues touching on climate change. But get this, the government plans to revolutionize the transport sector by replacing the diesel-powered vehicles with the climate-friendly ones, such as electric vehicles. Transport CS Kipchumba Murkomen, who spoke to KTN News on the sidelines of the Africa Climate Summit, said that the move is to ensure Kenya remains in the decarbonization climate agenda. The CS was speaking with KTN's Purity Museonzuki. Take a look.
Since the beginning of this summit, we've seen President William Ruto jet in with an electric car. Joining me is Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen. Let's get to hear the plan to roll out these electric cars and vehicles in the country. Thank you so much, sir, for making time for us. First, let me begin by welcoming your remarks on what do you think about this conference as it comes to a close today?
It's been a great success. It's opened the door for us to have a honest conversation about climate change and its impact in African countries, developing countries, particularly in Africa. As the president said, it is a conference that has come, almost 30 years late, because, in 1992, since the world became conscious of this conversation in Rio, we haven't had really a summit that focuses on those who bear the greatest pain and burden because of the pollution of the environment. And as a result, we have been just having conversations outside the areas and the regions that have been really heavily impacted. So it took the leadership of President William Ruto on behalf of his colleagues in Africa to now have a honest discussion about this subject. And this has been a success. If you look at the response from the United Nations, the developing countries, the participation of the European Union, the United States, and the organs of governance all over the world that deal with the environment, this has been a great success. The conversation is focused, targeted, it has solutions, it has proposals, and the most of it all is that we didn't call each other here to come and lament. We came here to say, hey, yes, we have suffered as Africa, but in our suffering, there is a silver lining. There's an opportunity for us now in correcting the impacts of climate change to get a benefit from it by ensuring that our resources are developed, our green resources, green energy friendly resources, whether it's solar, whether it is the provisions of hydro, whether it is we're talking about geothermal, whether you're talking about our minerals as African countries, and also the opportunity for us to leapfrog from being developing countries or least developed countries straight to being the solution for climate change, and therefore attracting greater investments in terms of investment in clean energy and so forth. So as a result, we can actually turn these challenges to become an opportunity. And we can then ask those who are in the global north, who have the resources and the wherewithal to come and invest in our resources here as ways and means of resolving a problem that, though we do not cause the problem, we become the solution.
Yeah. And does this mean that we should stop, because asking for them to pay, for example, there was a 100 billion shillings dollar fund that they're supposed to pay to compensate in the loss and damage fund. Does it mean that African countries should stop having this conversation? Because I believe this is one of accountability role that Africa is doing.
Yes, absolutely. Loss and damage is extremely important because we know there is already an agreement in place from Paris that countries will no longer pay lip service to the loss and damage, and therefore that they must be able to put resources to ensure that we mitigate the impact of climate change. You know what happened in our country in the last 1 year, that we have put immense resources towards mitigating impacts of drought, yet we are not part of those. Our energy is 92% clean. We know that the level of pollution in our country is low. So the loss and damage conversation will go on, but also the investment part, the opportunities to invest in clean energy, in better transport systems, in alternative transport modes that are going to make sure that, including electric vehicles, including mass transit systems to reduce number of private cars, are some of the investments that we can now ask those in the north. Apart from the question of reparation, the loss and damage, we also have an opportunity for investment, that we can track investment, we can resolve our problem of unemployment because we are a young continent, we can resolve our problems of underdevelopment because we can invest now through industries that are climate change friendly or compliant in terms of protecting our climate.
But the problem has been money investing into this. Yes, we have. The president yesterday said that Africa has a 60% energy potential, but the problem is now money financing, investing into this. What should countries do now that we need to shift our focus from complaining and taking advantage of what we have?
As a nation, first of all, we need to, our continent of Africa, is to convert our resources we must convert our existing natural resources and to bankable investments. Now it is for us to get expertise, package these projects in a manner that can attract investment. It's not enough to say, oh, we have the potential of nickel, we have minerals, we have solar energy. How do you package it together in a way that you can go to investors? Because those are private sector, they're not governments. You can tap into resources that are in private companies in the global north by reducing this information to bankability. But for us to attract these investments, there must be access to capital. And so the link between bankability of the investments that we have here that are climate friendly and the access to affordable credit. And that's why the conversation also must be now moved in the United Nations circles, in the multilateral banks, World Bank, IMF, African Development Bank, and all these international banks must now, a reform must go into these banks for us to access credit in affordable rates. Just imagine, we are far behind development-wise, and then we access capital at a rate that is 20, 30, 40, 100 times higher than the ones who are 1,000 miles ahead of us. So it is not fair. And that is why, again, using our strength in the international multilateral institutions, we need to be able to move this conversation about accessible credit, because there's a link between accessible credit and bankability of our projects and development of these assets, that's the 60% potential, into reality and something that can resolve our problems as a continent.
Finally, sir, let's talk about your ministry, the transport sector, because it's very crucial in the decarbonization agenda. What is your plan? In the last few days, 2 days, we've seen President William Ruto arriving here in an electric car. Are we going to see more of this, or what does your ministry plan to reduce this carbon emission?
Maybe unknown to many. At the moment, we have already moved to e-mobility. And our country, in Nairobi alone, we have over 20, almost 20 buses in the various circles in the city. And in April this year, I launched electric buses provided by a company called Basico. So I saw some Kenyans saying, oh yeah, a joke that one Kenyan was saying, tumezileta vikombe vya wageni, that because we have visitors here, we are showcasing electric buses. That's not true. Anybody who has been using public service, public transport, knows that there are a few electric buses already in the city. We have over 2,000 electric motorcycles, and there's a company where the president launched the motorcycles recently, that is moving towards getting us 10,000 in the next 2 or so months. There is a revolution, a silent revolution ongoing in terms of electric vehicles. You know, I gazetted a task force on e-mobility that is working on the laws, policy and regulations on e-mobility. that will guide us on how to install the infrastructure. Already the government, you know that in the last financial bill, we reduced the taxes related on investments on batteries and electric vehicles and motorcycles. We're going to work further to see how far further can you go in that reduction to attract that investment. The idea here is to make sure that we reduce the number of vehicles that are using diesel and increase those that can use energy that we produce ourselves. We don't produce oil, so we have an advantage now of investing in clean electric energy, and we use it to power our transport system. The other thing we are doing in the ministry is to make sure that in the cities, especially in Nairobi metropolitan area with over 11 million citizens in the 5 counties of Kiambu, Murang'a, Machakos, Kajiado and Nairobi, we are investing in the bus rapid transit system. Already we are developing line 2 that comes from Ruiru to Kenyatta National Hospital. That will be extended further to Thika. That is being developed by government, the government itself, for purpose of showcasing the potential that is in BRT system. We are working with European Union in BRT line 3. African Development Bank have shown interest in supporting line 4. The Korean government is working with us also to support line 5, and the Chinese government is working with us to support line 1, which is the Mombasa Road. Yeah. So all these developments are going to make a big difference, because then we'll reduce the number of people who are coming to town with private vehicles, or the small matatus that are, carrying 14 people. We can now carry people in bigger buses. And what we've done is to incorporate the current operators of the matatus to the investment in the BRT system, and therefore so that there is a seamless transition. We have also worked to revamp our commuter rail network in the city. We want to ensure that we have more wagons and more coaches to carry people, so that we operate the mass transit system. We want to revamp that network. We are working also with the British to invest in the Nairobi railway city, and that means we develop the systems around the railway city itself, including the Nairobi Central Terminus and other investments. You know that we have already awarded a tender to develop a Riruta and Ngong network, and we will move to Kiserian and bring it back up to Rongai. That network will ensure that most of the people who are using road system, we can move them en masse using meter gauge railway, which is revamped. So we have an elaborate plan on reducing carbon emissions by ensuring that we reduce the number of small vehicles that are operating within our country. There is also investments in conversion of existing vehicles into electric, existing motorcycles into electric. Those are processes that we support as a ministry. In the aviation sector, we are working on our operational procedures at the airport to make sure that there's a shorter time for planes on the ground emitting more carbon. Manufacturing is going on also of planes that are more fuel efficient. Our operation on the ground at the airport, we're trying to use electric vehicles, electric buses, which some are in place already. So all these mechanisms are going. Of course, you heard the president saying that we want to invest in clean power, clean energy, clean aviation fuel, use of hydrogen. That investment also is being attracted to our country, so that we be at the forefront. We already flew Kenya Airways plane to Europe using biofuel twice, and for cargo plane. And so those are the processes that we are working on. We want Kenya to be the leader in clean energy in the country, and to be the leader in combating climate change. And so the transport sector plays an extremely important role in ensuring that we achieve that objective.
Yeah. And most of the time why people use private cars is because of conveniency.
Yes.
So they might be reluctant into using the public means. Are we going to see maybe a ban on private car use, or even on the fuel, petrol powered vehicles?
Because we are going to provide clean, green, efficient and safe public transport using BRT and the railway network, it will be inevitable that more people will prefer. The buses will be clean, they will be operating on time, they will not have traffic jams because they have their own designated lanes on both sides. So people will eventually, out of necessity and to save cost and to save time, people will prefer the BRT system. Instead of running around using force, we rather provide alternatives that will make people prefer public transport system than for us to say, okay, by force we are going to force people to use public. Of course, working with Nairobi County government, we need also to make sure that there are incentives that encourage electric vehicles, to many people to buy electric vehicles, maybe have lesser parking fees for electric vehicles in the city and so forth. We are also investing in the I forgot to say this, that we want to invest heavily in the non-motorized transport system. That means that we want to do more walkways, we want to do more cycling paths, and we want to make sure that our future road plans become integrated. We have all the designs that we will do for future roads must have cycling paths and walkways, so that then we support the over 40% of the population that walk on foot and who use bicycles, and we reduce the number of accidents that happen. There are over 1,200 every year. Pedestrians are knocked across the country because we do not have a properly investment in the non-motorized transport system.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Thank you so much. All right. And we've been speaking with Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen over his agenda in the transport sector. Remember, this is one of the sectors that contribute immensely in the carbonization or release of the carbon into the atmosphere. So, yes, that's the plan that he said. We continue to be here. Today is the last day. And, of course, we shall be getting to know some of more declarations from ministries and delegates and even heads of state and government. I'm Purity.